appreciate you guys coming out here tonight to engage in the creative economy and hopefully find out ways you've been contributing, ways that you can contribute, and what this really means to the overall bigger picture. Before we get into the panelist questions, I'm just going to give you guys a couple facts to give you some context as to the creative economy. The value of the arts and culture production in America in 2019 was $918 billion, amounting to 4.3% of the GDP. The arts contribute more to the national economy than do construction, transportation and warehousing, travel and tourism, mining, utilities, and agricultural industries. Performing arts companies and independent artists, writers, performers added a combined total of $60 billion to the U.S. economy, last reported in 2019. And America's nonprofit arts industry generates $166 billion in economic activity every year, resulting in $27.5 billion in federal, state, and local tax revenues. But without much further ado, I know everybody's wondering who this young lady is in the middle here, and also what a film commissioner is. So if we could start off, Sandy, first off, what is a film commissioner, and tell us a little bit about your experience in Miami, what you're bringing to the table here.
Okay, so what a film commissioner is, or what I want to say what I do as a film commissioner, that's not necessarily what all film commissioners do. First and foremost, I'm here to nurture the local creative and bring together collaboratively. I'm here to bring in, from the outside in production, and obviously that spells out in regards to local artists as well as businesses, financially into an economy. I'm in the educational sector. Hopefully that will happen here in Broward, where I try to nurture students to be able to come out into a film-friendly environment, and hopefully for them to stay here and to be employed here. And what else do I do? I mean, basically, I'm marketing Broward County as a film and television destination, as well as locally bringing everybody together to work together, so that local I was saying artists, but I call filmmakers artists. Local filmmakers can actually get their projects made, whether it's made in Broward County or it's made otherwise, because they're representing Broward County. So that's what a film commissioner does. And also on top of that, making policies film friendly, and that means throughout the county. So that means all the municipalities as well as the county itself. Coming from Miami-Dade County, so before I was in Miami-Dade County, I was a producer for 25 plus years. I won't say how many of those more years than that I wasn't, but I did start really young. I will say that, and I haven't had plastic surgery yet. But I came to Miami-Dade County because actually I wanted to stay closer to home. I was raising my kids. I was a single mom, and I needed to stay around. And the job came up under the film commissioner, and when I was there about a month, and I knew the film commissioner, his name was Jeff Peel, he was my predecessor, and he said, "You're going to be the next film commissioner," and within 2 years I was. And in Miami-Dade County, it was very interesting because I want to say the community, and we were talking about this before started, the community pretty disjointed, very competitive. And I think that during the reign that I was there, I introduced people to people that started working together more collaboratively, and I think that it's a better place because of that. Still didn't finish my job there. I think that there's more to be done there. But when it comes to what I attracted in, I was in this position before incentives came into play, and I don't know if everybody knows about film incentives and how important they are into the industry, or the business of the industry as being part of the business plan of how films are made. But we had a very small incentive, and then we had a very large incentive, and then we had no incentive. And so in that arc, I was have been in the as a film commissioner, and rode that arc. But during that time, when we lost the state incentives and our the direct spend into the economy was going down, I lobbied for 3 years in Miami-Dade County to have a local incentive program that, when I left, brought in about $50 million of direct spend into the economy from production. So that was, I was the first, I want to say we were the first, Miami-Dade was the first to have a local incentive program, and then others in the state followed. So that's kind of a little bit about what he did.
Very nice. And Andrew, for those that aren't familiar with film and the film industry specifically, how does the film industry fit into the creative economy, and why is it important?
Well, I mean, the creative economy certainly kind of covers all of those creative fields, and technology is certainly part of that as well. Film being a big part of that, being able to kind of showcase things from a visual standpoint. When we start looking at how film plays into Broward County specifically, I think it's a great opportunity for us to visually show all the incredible things that we have here, whether it's for tourists to be able to visit. When you look at a movie and you see a movie in a particular location, a lot of times you want to go visit that location if it's a really great movie. And so that's a really great kind of way that film could essentially kind of bring people into the economy here. Obviously, I think too that being able to have more creative people certainly kind of really helps everything else. So it kind of plays into all of the different aspects of business. And think in a larger sense, creative people are the ones that businesses want to hire. So a lot of businesses would look to relocate or locate their corporate offices in areas that have a really thriving creative environment and a lot of creative people. The creative economy, I think, employs the largest number of people between 15 and 29. So a lot of times you find those are the people that are really, really young and coming out with these really creative ideas. And then it also bleeds into technology. So, technology is certainly a major, major thing now. Digital is a major thing now. You look at things like Netflix that have kind of created these platforms for film and filmmakers to be able to showcase their work to people around the world. You see Netflix doing things with places in Korea and a bunch of other places. So, there's the subtext now, there's full another language that you're kind of looking at a movie and you're kind of reading the subtitles. So I think film's a really, really major player in the overall creative economy, and looking forward to all the things we can get Broward.
And when a film production company comes to shoot a TV show, a movie, or whatever it may be, they generally bring staff who has to stay in a hotel and eat food and take a rental car and shop at the local coffee shop or the local businesses, and that money directly goes into the creative economy. So film production, when we were losing these incentives, when we were losing these major shoots, it really did hurt our overall economy. So we're very glad to have Sandy here to help us right the ship. You want to?
I just wanted to say something. You talked about visually and about what we call film-induced tourism. I have a funny story that kind of plays into that. So when I was years ago, I was probably 2013. I was in 2012. I was in Manchester, England, for a film related event, and there to market Miami-Dade County. And I went into the elevator. You had to have the bellhop. There was a bellhop, and he had to take your luggage. So we're in the elevator, and he has no idea who I am, and he's all really happy, and I'm like, why, you look really happy. Why are you so happy? He goes, because I'm going on vacation tomorrow. I go, where are you going? He goes, I'm going to Miami. I go, I didn't say a word. I said, why are you going to Miami? He rolls up his sleeves and he goes, because we want to see where Miami Ink was shot, and he was all inked up on his sleeves. Yeah, so there it goes. That's film-induced tourism, right?
Amen.
Yeah.
There's some other really cool things happening this week that we didn't mention thus far, involving projections and another visual art form. If you guys didn't know, we have Ignite Broward taking place this week. Phil, could you tell us a little bit about what we're in store for this week here?
Sure. Ignite, and let me tell you, it took a long time to find a name because most names were taken. And I won't go too much further into it. But so Ignite Broward is basically a five-day digital art based festival. And what we're trying to do is build this into a signature event and part of a signature event for Broward County. And so much focus is now on, and it's a trend that's been happening for a long time, so it's not new. We're not reinventing inventing anything here, but experiences, right? When people travel, they want less of the sort of cookie cutter touristy experience. They want something unique, something local. when you visit an art museum, when you visit a cultural attraction, you want a unique experience. You don't just want to feel like you're there sitting in a sort of a two-dimensional space as a passive participant. You want to be an active participant. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to provide some immersive experiences. And of course, right around this time, it started because when COVID was happening, we wanted to try and find some outdoor things for people to experience art. And we did some piloting last year. And this year, I think we've created a much more compelling series of art installations, and they're site specific. So everything you're going to see during Ignite is designed and created specifically by the artists for the site. So you think of the building and the space as part of the experience and part of the artwork. So we have 3 outdoor installations that are opening tomorrow. So around 6 p.m. At the Museum of Discovery and Science. There's the public kickoff. It's free if folks want to come. There's going to be a food truck and a beer truck for purchase. We're not providing free, unfortunately. But Mad Labs, which is our creative partner, is doing an immersive installation on the atrium of MOD. So I was just down there. So imagine 3 of those walls where that clock is going to be one large sound and light and projection mapped art installation. In the park across the street, we're working with an artist collective, Glowing Bulbs, and I would totally butcher the names of the artists because they're in from Germany that are installing these 2 installations. So the gazebo that's in Esplanade Park, we've completely enclosed in a mesh, and there's probably about 8 projectors in there. So actually be able to walk into the gazebo. That's actually an interactive experience. So based on your movement and things, the art will change. In the trees between the park and the Performing Arts Center are these hanging cocoons that react to sound and sound and movement. So you can walk through the trees and see these cocoons. That's going to be visible from 6 p.m. till 10 p.m. Wednesday and Thursday, and then till 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday, and then Sunday till 10. So obviously it's outdoors. When it's dark, it's going to be better. So don't go during the day. You're not going to see anything other than what's normally there. And then in Dania Beach at Mad Studios, which is where the Museum of Decorative Arts is. I see our friends from there. It's in the building that formerly housed the Gallery of Amazing Things is now where Mad Studios is, which is our creative partner. And they've got an amazing David Carson exhibition. He's sort of the godfather of graphic design existing that's in there, so you can go and see that. And then we have 3 indoor installations. One is an artist, Susan Narduli, who's an architect and artist based out of LA. We've commissioned her to do art installations on the 3rd Avenue Bridge and the Andrews Avenue Bridge. So we wanted to bring her in to do an indoor installation. Then David Carson is doing an immersive installation, and then Edison Peñafiel, who's a South Florida Broward artist whose work is very provocative, focuses a lot on immigration. You actually walk into a room and you'll see 81 figures in black and white, all in different boats, and basically it represents migrants, people fleeing war-torn countries, whatever it might be, on these boats, but they're in this perpetual loop. And so he's 78 of the 81 figures. He creates the masks, the costumes, films. It's got sound, and but it provokes a conversation. So we've got a lot of different experiences in the Ignite Festival, and we're glad we're able to put it during Fort Lauderdale Art and Design to try and aggregate as much kind of experiences as we can.
And we're very glad to have it during the week, and we couldn't go without saying thank you, Broward County Cultural Division, for the sponsorship and support of Fort Lauderdale Design Week. So we're able to make events like this happen and get them out to the mass public through running ads on NPR and running ads on TV and Facebook and Google. All these things take money, let you guys know about them so that you can engage and take part of the festivities. Andrew, and we'll also pass over to Phil afterwards. What are some other areas of opportunity that you see for Broward County, specifically as it relates to arts and the creative economy?
I think obviously the week is a major part. I mean, being able to show the different opportunities that we have and different places that we have to go. Places like the Frank, that's a little bit further out west. I know sometimes, when we're out east, we don't drive that far out west, but it's an incredible museum and gallery there. Coral Springs Museum, W Moda as well, a really incredible gem that we have there in Dania Beach. and they have hosted some really incredible events this past couple of days, this past weekend, and there's some other events coming up as well. So I think letting people know about the things that we have is a major thing, and obviously the collaboration is huge. I think the addition of film, I mean, film's kind of not been at the forefront for a very long time, and I think being able to kind of infuse that into the arts, I think is going to be major. And then looking at the stuff that they're doing at Mad Arts with these immersive experiences and the projections, kind of tying in technology and the art, and that has a filming component to it. I think serendipitously, or it just kind of all kind of coming together. So I think those things are really, really huge and able for us to be able to promote the arts and showcase the arts here.
And Phil, any other thoughts on some other opportunities or areas?
Well, I think the opportunities are endless, and we're at I've only been here 2 years and I don't know, 9 months or something at this point. I got here May of 19. So everything that everyone tells me is that this is an exciting time to be here. This all comes with a double-edged sword, as my rent goes up $400 a month in March, but that's another story. But there's so many people moving here, right? There are people moving here from the West Coast, from New York, and people moving here, and not to say anything about folks that live here, but people are going to demand certain things that they're used to, and if they're here, or if they're not here, we've got to be prepared to rise to the occasion. So we've got a very supportive county commission. There are a lot of exciting things happening at the city of Fort Lauderdale in arts and culture. They've created a cultural affairs officer position, which is a brand new position, and some other staff to support that. The working for the county provides great opportunities, and we have a lot of opportunities to make some significant change. At the same time, within Broward County, you have 31 independent cities that may or may not want to go where the county has decided it wants to go with arts and culture. So having strong partners at the municipal level gives me at the county level people to work with, and people to, that can affect similar change and move things at the city level. I can say we want to go in this direction all I want, but if there's not buy-in at all levels of of the government and the community, then you just sort of spin your wheels. So I think that's where a lot of the opportunity lies, and where my work then focuses, much like Sandy's, is trying to make policies as arts friendly as possible, so that you can kind of pull back the bureaucracy of government and let what's here and the opportunity to kind of grow organically, instead of just like saying, I'm going to plant this here and plant this here. It's already here. We just need to, pull back the curtains, let the sun shine, and let the water flow, and the garden is going to grow.
But you're right about the municipalities, and working with them and trying to educate them, I would say, on arts and culture, film, all of it, so that they understand what it brings. And that takes time. It takes time, and nurturing relationships, and showing, not just talking about it, but showing.
And take, sorry, not to, but take film, for example. And I know one of the challenges previously is each of the 31 cities might have their own rules about filming, and they might have their own, each city has to sign off on a film permit that's happening, it's happening, and it's going to be different people. So, right. So, but then the county's the one that's processing. So unless you've got continuity, and this goes for the broader arts and culture sector across all of it, these are the kinds of barriers that prohibit, or that make this potentially not a place that arts organizations or artists or people in the film industry want to come, because they've got to try and figure out how to navigate this bureaucracy where on this side of the street you've got one policy, and on this side of the street you might have another policy. Right?
But some, and I say this because that still does happen where policies are different, but it is how you garner it, how you, for us anyhow, how we communicate that and be the conduit, and I want to say the conduit between, let's say, a production company or the production community, film industry stakeholders, and the government. And so, as being that conduit, we have to actually speak for both sides. So we have to protect, our municipalities and the county, but on the same side, we're trying to bring in and make it easier. But for us to be that in between and to be that spokesperson, so that when a municipality is saying, no, we don't want to do that, the filmmaker doesn't hear that. Then I'm speaking to the municipality and saying, well, what can we do? And then we come back and we have a solution so that they're not hearing all of the things that might be going on in the background. So that's what we're trying. That's what I did in Miami-Dade County, and I'm hoping to do that the same thing here.
And the folks in Georgia a few years ago did a very good job of this, which contributed to hundreds of billions of dollars of economic impact.
But they have a state incentive program.
Right, they do. But I'll tell you something. You say that it's very true. Money speaks, and that's about incentives. But if you talk to any producer that's in Georgia, they will tell you it is not film friendly.
Correct.
Right. So, but the money outweighs the film friendliness. But what attracts, the first thing is actually having an office that actually can service production. And that's one thing that's talked about in this industry very much, is that if you don't have an office that can actually know how to cut the red tape and do all that, the money actually, it'll cost you more money than the incentive that they're giving you. So that's very much part of bringing in production here, is that we have to make sure that our house is in order, right, and that we are showing that part of it off. That's actually number one. There's three things that are asked. The first thing that's asked is how much, what kind of incentive you have. The second thing that's asked is what kind of infrastructure, studios, and crew do you have. And the third thing is how strong is your film office in regards to, helping the production. So we're intending on doing all three.
And something that we used to talk about in this conversation in previous iterations was the strength of the arts helps with something called attracting and retaining talent. How many of you guys have had friends that have had to leave to go other places to find work, to pursue their craft, their passion, their creative outlet, their profession? My previous videographer, when we first started, used to live in Sailboat Bend Artist Loft at a discounted, reduced rent, and he moved to Georgia, where he's now making Netflix shows and killing it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that same opportunity at the time when we didn't really have a film commissioner a few years ago wasn't there. We lost one of our most talented, a few of our most talented filmmakers. If anybody remembers BJ Goldnick, this guy was shooting, for National Geographic, and I digress. But when you have a strong arts and culture scene and a strong arts and culture community, that not only helps us attract these talented, skilled workers, investors, art collectors, people that are going to support the arts, but that also helps us retain talented, skilled workers to work these necessary jobs in the arts and culture industries, the tech sectors, so on and so forth. We all know, because we all pretty much live here, right, that this is a beautiful place. We all choose 954. But Sandy, what makes Broward County visually distinct and attractive for production, and what sort of outreach will you be doing to filmmakers?
Okay, so what makes it very attractive is it's so diverse. So you look at Hollywood Beach, that's tropical. You look at the south part of Fort Lauderdale Beach, that's tropical. When you go northern on beach, then that's more like the Pacific, like Los Angeles. You go to Markham Park, it looks like Colorado. You go to TY Park, it looks like Connecticut. Downtown Hollywood can be any town in the Northeast. So the diverse amount of locations that we have here is so attractive. And I don't think that has been, actually, shown to the world, all of the diverse locations that we have. What was the second part of the question?
The second, what sort of outreach will you be doing to reach filmmakers?
Well, I'm going to tell you, right now I'm not doing any outreach, and I'm going to tell you why. Because what I told you about before is we have to get our house in order first. Now, that's not to say that all my contacts haven't been calling me and saying, when are you having an incentive? Are you going to build studios? We want to come. So that's the great part of, that I'm bringing to the table is my relationships with global Hollywood. But that said, I'm still in the process. I don't even have staff yet. So I've only been there 3 weeks. So I need to have staff. Staff has to be trained in regards to all of the different rules and all the different municipalities as they are now. And then after that, then I start creating policy and working with the county, as the departments, as well as all those municipalities to make it film friendly. And then I reach out, because it has to be in that order.
Right.
Yeah.
Amen.
And,
Let's go.
and I have to say the county commission has been very supportive. I mean, they've committed funds, they've committed money. Mayor Geller, whose term ended last fiscal year, is largely responsible for really pushing this through. So the county is committed to doing it, which I think is encouraging. And having you here as the film committee, we've met on the phone. but
Yeah,
this is
on
our first
Zoom,
time
we did, it was a
meeting
Zoom.
in person, even though we're both county employees.
I know, and we're like just like a block away, but we're so busy that we have no.
So anyway, it's great having you.
Well, thank you. I mean, I wanted you to know that I came. There was a reason I came here, and the reason I came. I mean, I was in Miami-Dade County. I wasn't looking for another job, honestly. But seeing Broward County, knowing Broward County, living here for 30 years, and then the opportunity coming up. And film commission jobs don't come up often at all, let alone the next county over, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I really felt that I wanted to bring what I could bring to the table to bring everybody together. And it's interesting talking about the arts community and what I've felt here. And I was having this conversation before we came here, is that I feel that the arts community in Broward is so much more collaborative than it is in Miami-Dade. And I'm not knocking Miami-Dade because I was there forever, but I'm just saying that the feeling that I get here, and even when I outreach to different communities, I feel that there's the desire to have the creative economy here. And the one thing that I say is, as we grow and we get bigger, because we are going to get bigger in all ways, whether it be film or art or otherwise, that we make sure that we keep that collaboration, because that's what's going to keep us attractive.
Amen. And just a quick note, if you guys aren't familiar about the impact of the arts in a place right down the road in Miami. Does anybody remember Miami before Art Basel? I mean, honestly, it was paradise lost. And you could watch a very, very good film called Cocaine Cowboys by Billy Corbin, and he will tell you very distinctly how it transformed to what it is now, which we can all pretty much agree. Miami is pretty much the cultural capital mecca, at least of the North America and the United States, if not of the world. And especially during Art Basel time, when easily, last reported, it was $550 million were dumped into the creative economy for 1 week of art. That was before COVID. I mean, they've literally revolutionized their city through the growth and success and the impact of the arts. So what if we were to come together? We're catching up a few years behind, but what if we were to come together over our Arts Week here, right now, during Fort Lauderdale Design Week, and have people fly from around the world and purchase more homes and invest in more art, so on and so forth. We'll see the benefits continue to trickle. They're naming new development projects in Miami Basel, literally a new building. So that really goes to show right down the street, a few minutes down the road, the impact of the arts in a place like Miami. Philip, what is your response to critics who don't think government funds should be going to the arts?
Everyone feels their own initiatives are the greatest and the best and the most deserving of funding. I think it's somewhat of a false comparison to think that we have to be. I mean, unfortunately, this is the way the conversation usually happens. Mostly because of politics and I think special interests. But I don't think the conversation needs to be or has to be or should even be it's an either or, it's a both and. And so if it's something that's important to us, then it's something that has to be invested in. And so we don't have to give up the arts funding in order to have affordable housing, and we don't have to give up arts funding in order to work on problems with food insecurity and these kinds of things. We can have both, and the arts can play a role in a lot of these solutions, right? I mean, in St. Louis, I created an education program that worked on, it was an after-school program to help keep kids off the street that used the arts to meet juvenile outcomes, recidivism, like all this kind of stuff. So the arts has a role to play in it. I think some of it's noise that we have to cut through. I think arts funding shouldn't be controversial. It does often kind of get one of the first things to cut, because when you get in, say, a financial crisis or things like that, there are other things at work too. So during the financial crisis in 2009, I know that the cultural division suffered huge losses in funding and staff, and I think we're probably about 40% of what we were in 2009, 2008 budget wise, but we're coming back and things are looking great. So I don't know if I trailed off on a tangent, but this is where folks like you come in, because if it's important, then you have to advocate for what it is that you want, right? And this is where communicating on a regular basis with your county commissioners, with the city commissioners in whatever city that you live in is so important to the process, the relationship building, the cultivation, the letting those people that control the purse strings. My budget, I'm a county agency, it comes from the county commission and the budget process. So if residents are calling saying this is important to me, we want more, then it helps me do my job more effectively, because then I'm not the only one that's talking to the commission and county administration about the importance of art and culture. It's being reinforced from the other side.
Amen. And advocacy is vital.
And it's so easy.
Yeah, and it's also on the state level, because the county receives funds from the state on
Right.
the state level. So
And I was just in Tallahassee
Yeah.
meeting with legislators up in Tallahassee, because we're getting to the point where the committee budgets are going to start coming out. So I met with as many of the TED committee members as I could, because Florida went from being third in the nation in arts funding to 48th in the nation for arts funding,
Yeah.
and now we're around about, I think, 26 or so. When the MSD shooting happened, and then Hurricane, I think Irma,
yeah.
happened around the same time, a lot of money was
Matthew.
diverted, and if you take your eyes off it, once the money goes away, it's really hard to get it back. So we've gotten a little more than half of it back, but we're still just so far off the mark. So I was up in Tallahassee last week meeting with legislators. It's everybody's it's something everybody can do that helps keep it part of the conversation.
And I will say, like, the advocacy thing does definitely work. I mean, I've reached out to city commissioners and county commissioners about several things. I mean, the public art and getting more public art things going on. And they did listen, and they've created a whole new advisory board for public art. And as well as the film commission, several emails and conversations, and turned into film summit, just really talking about the different things that we needed to do in Broward County. And there were replies back, and they were all really interested. Obviously, you have to have your data to be able to provide them with that data for them to, kind of validate, what you're trying to do. But I would say I've been really, really enthusiastic about the response with regards to arts over the last, I would say, couple of years, in terms of them really listening to things that, have kind of come out. And obviously you want to be able to get some other people to also reach out and ask questions and provide their input. But
just really quick, just because they like to hear when they like to hear what things you want, what's going to make the quality of life better here. They don't just want to hear from you when you're pissed off about the traffic signals, the timing, or the closing lanes
Manholes.
of traffic,
Yeah.
stuff like that, right? So calling your elected officials and involving them in, like, what's going to make this community better, and if it's the arts, and those are two good examples. I mean, the film commission at the county level and the art stuff that's happening at the city of Fort Lauderdale level. I mean, a lot of that happened because residents called and said, like, this is something that we want, and they listened.
I recall we all went to advocate right after you got the job to City Hall, because the development community was not in favor of art in public places at that time. They were pushing back, and we went to speak in favor of implementing AIPP. Are you guys familiar with AIPP, art in public places? New development projects, the developer is supposed to allocate in dozens of municipalities in the state, hundreds across the country. They literally have an ordinance where on new development projects, $100 million development, they have to put 1% to public art. Okay, instead of making 100 million, now you're going to make 99 million for round numbers and examples. And for some reason, the development community here was against that. And where is the art funding supposed to come from? Just from Phil in the culture division. And now, thankfully, we have new policies in play, and we've seen great projects come out of the AIPP at the county level and at city levels, municipality levels. So advocacy really can make an impact, and not just the bad stuff, but the good stuff too.
Can I
Please,
add something about advocacy? So, in the industry in regards to incentives, that's part of my job also, is going to Tallahassee, speaking to legislators, and also creating policy and the actual bills. Actually, I'm vice president of Film Florida, which is the nonprofit industry stakeholder organization in the state, and so we actually create the bills that are in Tallahassee. But talking about advocacy is so important, and we speak about this all the time. You need to tell your story. You need to tell your personal story to whether it be your commissioners locally, whether it be on the state level, even on the federal level. Really important to tell your personal story and how your art or what your experience is, and what it means to you to have art in your life, whether it be film or art or otherwise. And those stories are what resonate, because afterwards, when you leave and you tell a good story, and a good story meaning the personal story, that's left with them, and that's what changes. That is what changes minds.
Amen. Talking about ways that we can get other people into the conversation, Philip, during the pandemic, you held regular conference calls with artists to brainstorm ideas for ways to respond to the situation. Any creative outcomes come from those efforts?
Well, I mean, surprise, surprise, people, artists, organizations, they need money.
You don't say.
But they also need money with like as few strings attached as possible, right? Sometimes in my industry, not only in the government sector, especially just with red tape, but in the foundation, we think we have to have all this huge, massive process in order to have access to funds. We're making some small changes. Like it's actually a big change. It might seem like a small change, but we used to pay all of our grants as reimbursement. So the project would be done, and then you would bill us. Because that's the way government works, right? Fee for service. You would give us an invoice. We see it's been done, right? But a grant to support arts and culture is not an RFP. It's not I'm not soliciting WMOTA to do to create and run an art museum. They're coming to us and saying, this is what we do. And we're saying, we appreciate and recognize the value that you bring to this community. We want to ensure that you're able to continue to do that. So now we pay all of our grants up front once the contract is signed. So because that helps with cash flow, that helps with, you're not then robbing Peter to pay Paul in order to do your projects. So that's, one of the small changes. We did a lot of tracking of data in the beginning of COVID on economic impact, and surprise, it was quite great to the arts community. So at a certain point we stopped tracking because I thought, well, it's already bad. So it's saying it's even worse. We already know it's bad, right? So luckily I'll say we kept things going. We overhauled our grants process during the pandemic. We didn't lose any funding. There were organizations that didn't get all of their grants during the pandemic because they couldn't do the projects that they had proposed initially. Obviously, because of COVID, it just wasn't possible to do it. But we didn't lose any funding. And in fact, this year we got a $200,000 increase in our grants budget. So we've been working on getting our house in order because so much of that was just neglected over the decades. So we spent the pandemic, trying to listen, trying to get ideas. But at the end of the day, organizations and artists and creatives, they need access to capital, they need access to funding, and they need access to funding in a way that doesn't put them in a precarious situation from a cash flow standpoint, that doesn't create needless paperwork and endless outcomes that you have to figure out how to create a measurable outcome for a symphony concert. It's like, well, damn it, I just did the concert. Isn't that the outcome? We're not saving lives here necessarily. So I don't know if that answered the question.
No, that's good. And perspective, real world economic impact of you supporting an artist and the creative economy. When you purchase a piece of artwork from a local artist, they are then able to take those funds and go to the art supply store so they can continue buying canvases and paint and continue pursuing their craft, their passion, their creative outlet profession. And like them or love them, I don't care about preferences. Places like Jerry's and Blick and Arteza and the art supply companies can continue staying in business.
But beyond that, or on a bigger level, an arts organization we'll just say a mid-sized organization is going to have an executive director, is going to have administrative assistants, might have a finance person, is going to have a fundraiser, is going to have marketing. So you have people in all these industries that are not necessarily artists, but they might, and those people have families, those people drive cars, those people have homes, they pay rent. So all the money that's given, it might go to support the larger part of the organization, but these are people's lives. These are like, I mean, just because somebody works in finance for an arts organization doesn't mean that their role is any less important or the money has any less significance than working for a financial corporation, right? This is still jobs and people's lives.
And the other great example with like the Broward Center for Performing Arts, when you go support the Performing Arts Center, they're able to pay the graphic designer making the flyer, the usher, the valet, people that base their livelihood on working in this industry. So I wanted to give some context and bigger picture of how your dollars can tangibly change an artist's life, career, practice, and literally allow this cycle to continue flowing. Because I always like to make this point. Nobody wants to live in a city or community devoid of life, color, and art. And I always pick on Youngstown, Ohio, but nobody wants to live in a place where it's like brown and gray all the time, right? You want to live in a place where there's murals, where there's art walks, where there's art fairs, where there's things to do. So we're really glad to support that. In arts, we're gonna we'll close on this last question, then we'll turn over to question and answer before we go to the cocktail reception afterwards. Andrew and myself have seen the impact of the arts and thankfully been able to contribute with things like Zero Empty Spaces. We hear these amazing stories from the artists, how their lives have been able to be changed. But another real challenge is tackling racial disparities in the art world. Andrew, any plans or thoughts, and Phil as well, on how we can address this issue from the chairs we're sitting in?
Well, I mean, I think creating platforms for people to showcase and showcase their talents, I think is huge. I think, like Ignite's a good example of this platform of these site-specific things for artists to come and showcase, and there are artists from different parts of the country that are there and of different nationalities and ethnicities as well. So I think platforms are huge, and creating more of those platforms are really big. I know the Architectural Association has their architectural fair this week as well. And again, there's a platform for architects to be able to showcase. And so I think creating those platforms and having those platforms, I think, is a huge part of it.
I can go on this subject forever. So when it comes to the film industry, this has been obviously a conversation. Oscar's so white. I mean, we've all heard it. It has changed the industry, and actually in some incentive programs across the country, that it has to be an equity inclusion, that you have to hire a certain amount of diversity in your crew when you're hiring to get the money. So things have changed in that space. There's an organization called Array. Array was started by Ava DuVernay, if you know who she is. She's the director. She's a Black director, and she is very well known. And she started this organization that actually, really spreads diversity. It is actually where you sign up, and everybody can sign up, but it focuses on minorities, women, people of color, and it's basically a directory so that others can find those artists and those filmmakers and those crew members. And it is actually making a big splash. And I'll say that in Miami, I contacted them when I first heard about them, and I'm already in contact with them for Broward. When I first heard about Array, and we partnered with them and became a test city for Array when they first started. And so they understand the importance of this community. It has to come from, I want to say a bigger place. That's helping, I want to say, across the nation. That's really helping diversify the industry, and it's really very important. I'll also say, education-wise, starting, with underserved kids, and I'm going to look somebody that's in the back that has Ron Baez and Devin Marsh, Ron is part of the White Elephant Group, and there's and Kevin's over there too, and the After School Film Institute, which started in Miami, and hopefully it's moving this way, where they've worked with the underserved community and teaching film and that's really important because the opportunities should be for everybody, especially since the median salary in the film industry in the state of Florida, not measured by us but the state, is $89,000 a year. Everybody should have the opportunity to be able to make that kind of money, to be able to understand that you don't even need a college education to be in this industry, and it has to start from public schools and teaching in public schools. I will eventually get there. That's part of that. It's very important.
How is it spelled? Sorry, array? How did
Array, ARRAY.
And by all means, we're going to open it up for questions, and you can engage with the panelists afterwards as well, and connect social media, email, and all that good stuff. This has been.
Do you want me to? I don't want to. I wasn't trying to
No.
I wasn't trying to weasel out because it's a heavy question, so I wasn't trying to punt it to Sandy and be like, I don't have to answer the race question.
You're off the clock.
That's all right. That's all right.
Well, I mean, for me, so much of it, Andrew talked about platforms, and providing the platform is certainly one thing. For us, it's a lot about creating accessibility, and a lot of times in government, especially in other ways, we can for if only for just a lack of knowledge of other people's situations and where they come from, create barriers that we think are put in place in order to be good stewards of public money, but end up just being barriers to access, being barriers. I mean, something as simple as recognizing that so many people in Broward County don't speak English, or English may not be their first language. So if we're truly going to serve the arts community and provide access to needed funding for arts organizations, then maybe our application shouldn't only be in English, or maybe our application workshop shouldn't only be in English. So, we need to recognize that we've got to be careful about. And this is not a commentary on any organization here in Broward County, so I'm not saying this in any veiled way, but we've got to be careful about how large, well-funded, majority white institutions are telling stories and experiences of people of color, right? So we have to listen to the community, we have to listen to the artists and the voices, and provide the platform for people to tell their own stories and experiences through art. And we have to make sure that the processes that we create and the processes that are those that are sort of those entryways into the system and into the process don't have barriers that we create because we think we're being good stewards, but out of ignorance of understanding of who we're ultimately trying to serve, that we create barriers to access. So we did our first grant workshop in a language other than English. We're working, recently we did Spanish. We're working on getting our grant process, our applications in Spanish or in another language, so that if English isn't your first language, you're not penalized, because of that. Things like making sure our grant panelists don't take points off for spelling, because English may not be someone's first language, so spelling and grammar shouldn't be things that we judge. You can recognize artistic process and substance, even though somebody may not be able to write, quote unquote, proper English, or what we consider, or what somebody, in the normative sense, considers. So we've got to learn how to recognize aesthetic and quality of product and process through, these things that we create as sort of standards about what is good and what is right and what is quote unquote normal. And we've got to make sure that we're not putting a lot of these barriers in place, unintentionally, that have these sort of unintended consequences. So
That's a great answer.
Well put.
Great, very well put.
there's a lot we can do. A lot of this is about addressing systemic issues in government. Hey, we're the system, right?
Yeah.
So we've got to work from the inside to unravel these things. And my counterpart in Miami, Michael Springs, told me when I first got the job, he said, one of the things that'll keep you going is showing up every day to work with an anger at the government system, because that is what keeps you motivated to constantly try and change things.
Well, that's, yes.
To
Yeah, that's very.
So I'm still here.
Art is history. Art is storytelling. Art is placemaking. Arts can do so many things. So many communities change. So many people's lives. I wasn't in art a few years ago. Art's had a profound impact on my life able to give back to my native home community in Broward County here that my father somehow decided to move to 30 something years ago. And I'm forever grateful for the arts. I'm forever grateful for you guys taking time out of your lives, come here and join us, be part of this conversation, contribute to the conversation, and hopefully we can have this be a thriving arts and cultural community for generations to come, so that our kids don't have to leave to go other places to pursue their craft, their passion, their creative outlet, or their profession. You should be able to be an artist here in Broward County.